What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and if you just got an iPad in 2025, this video is for you because we're going to be covering the first 21 things that you need to do after unboxing and setting up your new iPad. These are going to be tips and tricks, settings to change, ways to optimize your battery life, and more. And I will be using both the M3 iPad Air and the latest A16 iPad throughout this video, but these tips will also apply to the iPad mini and the iPad Pro. Okay, so let's start with something very important, and that is the battery life and the longevity of your battery life. So since we have a new iPad, we want to make sure that our battery is getting started off on the right foot. So go into your settings here, and you want to go into the battery section, and then go into where you see right here where it says battery health. Go into that, and it should say normal, by the way, and your maximum capacity should be close to 100% if it is a new iPad. However, the thing we need to look at here is the 80% limit. This is off by default. However, I would recommend most people to turn this on. So what this does is it charges your iPad to 80% and then it stops charging. So this will help increase the longevity of your battery health and the maximum capacity. It's going to keep that number as high as possible for as long as possible. Of course, there are other variables that go into that, but the 80% limit will help with that. So reducing the time that your iPad spends fully charged, reduces the wear on your battery over the long haul. So limiting your charge, to 80% can help prolong your battery's lifespan. Okay, so there's one thing I see a lot of iPad users get confused by and kind of overwhelmed with, and that is the gestures. So gestures with your fingers and gestures with your Apple Pencil. And I'm talking about new iPad users and also seasoned iPad users. So let's talk about the basic iPad gestures and also some kind of hidden iPad gestures that you probably did not know. So starting with the basics, if you go into an application to get back to the home screen, you just swipe up from the bottom just like you do on an iPhone. You could also use this bottom bar right here to swipe between applications very quickly. You could also swipe up slowly from the bottom while in an application to pull up the dock. That way you don't have to go to the home screen to do that. And it's also nice for multitasking as well, which we're going to talk about this in a minute. But you could also take and drag an application from the dock into another window, like the slide over window right there, or other multitasking, which again, we'll talk about that in a moment, but that's a nice little use for the dock there. And if you keep swiping up, that will put you in the app switcher where you can see all of your currently opened applications and you can swipe up on those to close out of them. There's also a very easy way to take screenshots. So if you have an Apple Pencil and you swipe up from the bottom right, you can see it will take a screenshot, but you do not need an Apple Pencil. You could also do this with your finger. So if we do that same thing from that bottom right hand corner, you can see it will take a screenshot without having to press a combination of buttons. Now, you might need to turn this on in your settings. So go to settings and then down to multitasking and gestures, and then go down to the bottom and you'll see right here we have swipe finger from corner, and you could also change this as well. So if you want it to be off completely, or if you want it to be a quick note, you can do that right there as well. So you can see my bottom left is for quick notes, so when I do that, it pulls it up for me. But some of my favorite gestures include 3 and 4 fingers, and some of these are not really super well known by people, so you will have to have these turned on. They should be on by default, the 4 and 5 finger gestures. But let's go ahead and talk about some of these. So we're going to go into notes for the first one. So if you want to quickly copy and paste, you can do the same thing on the iPhone as well, but I just find it to be easier and more convenient on the iPad. But you could take 3 fingers and kind of pinch in on that text that you have selected and it will copy it. So you can see we get the little copy button up top. And then if we want to paste that text, we just do the same 3 fingers, but pinch out like that. And you can see it will paste that text, and we'll do it again right there. And you can see that's an easy way to copy and paste. And you could also take those 3 fingers and swipe to the left, and that will undo what you just did, and 3 fingers swipe to the right, and that will redo what you just undid. You could also take 4 fingers to swipe between applications. So if you don't like going down here to this bottom bar and sometimes missing it, you could just take 4 fingers like this, and you can swipe and go between applications very quickly. I find that to be very handy, especially on the 13-inch models of iPad. You could also do other things with 4 or even 5 fingers. If you wanted to go to the home screen, for example, if you just go ahead and pinch pinch in with 5 fingers, you can see it takes you to the home screen. Now, if you pinch in and hold, that will take you to the app switcher right there. And again, you can do that with 4 or 5 fingers. And I guess you can switch between apps with 5 fingers as well. I just never do that. I usually use 4 fingers for some reason. So one tip that you always should keep in mind with your iPad is that pretty much everything can be dragged and dropped. The iPad is great with drag and drop gestures, and a lot of people do not even realize that you can do it, especially when it's very convenient somewhere like photos. So instead of going up here and selecting multiple photos and then hitting share and going through that whole long process, you can actually take a picture right here to, take and hold on that and then select other ones as you're holding the image that you just selected down here. And you'll even see a counter right there that shows how many you have selected. Now, once you have those selected, you can actually go down here and go into another application. So if I go into notes, for example, I'm still holding these right here. You can see I'm kind of multitasking. I'll do a new note right here and I'll drop these photos in to that new note. And there we go. All those photos will show up right there and import into that note. And it's not just photos. You can even do this for text. So if you select some text right here and you press and hold on that, you can see it has that same little animation there. And we can go into like the Notes app, for example, and just paste that in right here without actually having to paste. We can kind of just drop that in right here and boom. And while we're in here, I might as well show you another tip for the keyboard. So if you're using your iPad like an iPad without the magic keyboard or anything like that, you'll probably get annoyed with the big keyboard because take a look at this. It takes up, nearly half the screen and you cannot see what's written beneath that or like kind of behind the keyboard. So a lot of times I like to make the keyboard smaller, and you could actually do that with a simple pinch gesture. So take, your 2 fingers right here and just kind of pinch in on the keyboard. And there you go. You have a smaller keyboard that you can kind of move around. It's kind of a floating keyboard that you can use as normal, but now you can see everything here, and it might even be easier and quicker for you to type this way as well. And if you want to get it back to full size, just pinch out like that, and then you have it back to being full size. And there's another little tip here in the iPad keyboard that a lot of people don't realize. You can do this on the iPhone as well, but I find it to be more useful on the iPad, and that is if you want to get to kind of, the shift variant or the other variant of the keys. So for instance, if you want to get the @ sign, the pound sign, or the money sign, most people will just go right here and then select it that way. And you have to press a button, go back to that keyboard. It takes a while, and it can take a while if you do a lot of those. So an easier way to do that is just to swipe down on the key, and you'll kind of see this little animation that comes up as you're doing that, and that will do that shift variant of that key. You could do it for numbers as well. Just swipe down on the key, and once you get used to this, it just makes you type so much faster on both the iPhone and especially on the iPad with the bigger keyboard. And there's other little tricks here as well. Like if you hold on the 0 key, that will get you the degrees symbol. So if you want to get the degrees symbol, that's an easy way to do that. You could also do this with other keys as well. Like if you hold down on the $sign, you can switch it to different languages, their different currency, and you can do it right here with other keys as well, as long as you see it right there as an option. The 0 is kind of hidden though with the degrees. Now we shouldn't go much further without changing our display settings, because your display is probably not going to look great once you unbox it and kind of set it up for the first time. Even if you transferred over everything from another iPad, it probably will not look the best. So let's change that around. Let's go to our settings first off, and then go down here to display and brightness, and then go down to the bottom and go to display zoom. And you might want to set this to more space if you're somebody who needs more space on the iPad. So I like it on default, but you might like it to be on more space. And then once you have that selected, go down to home screen and app library. And now we have an important option to use large app icons. So if you go home, you can see what my app icons look like right now. Now, if we were to turn that on, you can see how they'll look like. So they get a little bit larger. It's not a big difference, but you will notice a difference if you have a lot of applications on your home screen. So again, that's without, and here's with larger app icons. I actually prefer the larger app icons regardless of my iPad's screen size. Now you might also want to change the newly downloaded apps to go to the app library instead of just adding it to the home screen. That way you don't clutter up your home screen with a bunch of applications you might not use. The app library, of course, is if you swipe all the way over, you have your app library right here where it categorizes all of your applications. But if you don't like going all the way over there, you could also have the app library in the dock. So if you turn that on, you can see that now we have the app library over here, and it will quickly launch it from the dock, which can be very nice. You could also turn on suggested and recent apps in the dock if you would like that. So if you like your dock showing a lot of things at once, you can have that so it shows suggested applications. I like keeping mine clean, so I like to keep that off, but you can turn that on if you would like to, either one of those. And speaking of displays, if you want your display to feel much better when drawing or writing with the Apple Pencil, you need a paper-like screen protector. Because sure, the normal glossy screen is fine, but it gets smudges, the pencil doesn't flow as well, and it just simply doesn't feel like paper. So Paperlike uses a microbead nanodot technology to give you that feeling and resistance as if you were writing with a pen on real paper. This is my preferred feeling when using an Apple Pencil, and even when I'm not using an Apple Pencil, it's just nice to know that my screen is protected from scratches, and more importantly for me, it's protected from all of those reflections that you get with a regular glossy screen. So if you haven't tried Paperlike, especially this improved 2.1 version, you should give it a try, and you can get the best deal by using my link down in the description below. There's also a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. Okay, so now let's talk about multitasking, because there are 3 different multitasking systems that are built in to iPad OS. So the first one is split view. So if we go into an application, let's just go into Twitter or X, for example, and if we swipe up right here, and then we have another application down here in the dock that we want to pull up side by side and have 2 apps going at once, we can do that by simply dragging this application over to the side. And now we have a split view going. You could also change the size of, which one takes up more real estate on the screen. You also have right here these 3 dots, which from here you can go into full screen, split view, slide over, or close. You could also open up another variation of that application. So if you want to have another notes window, you could do that. You can choose between the 2 down here. And if you want to replace one of these applications in the split view, all you have to do is just take and drag another application, a different application over top of it, and it will replace it, as you can see there. However, we can also add a third application through slide over. So you can do that from up here as well. You can see slide over as an option, but I like doing this when I want to pull up a third application. So we're going to go into here and we're going to pull up, let's just say notes, for example, as a slide over, so we can have 3 apps at once. So all you want to do is drag that and kind of put it in the middle. You'll see the size of the window change when it's going to go into slide over instead of taking over one of these, views right here for split views. We're going to put it right in the middle, and then you can see there we have 3 applications at once. We could also move this around because this is the slide over view. And what's really cool is you could actually have other applications in that slide over view. So you can really be running a bunch of applications at once. So for example, if I take files and put this over top of that slide over view, now we have multiple applications in that slide over view, and we can use this bar at the bottom to go back and forth quickly between them, just like we can on our main bottom bar here on our iPad. And if you want to put this to the side, if it's taking up your view and you don't want to, have to see that, you could just kind of drag this over to the side, or I just put that in that view on accident, but we'll try that again with something else. We'll just pull up files right here, for example, and now we're just going to move this to the side. We're just going to swipe this to the side right here, and you'll see that we have this little arrow that indicates we do have slide over, and we just swipe over from there to pull it back. And then the third multitasking system that is built into iPad OS is Stage Manager. Now this is not on the regular base iPad, so keep that in mind. But if you go down here to multitasking and gestures, you can see that we have Stage Manager right here. And what this does is it allows you to basically just get another version of multitasking where you have your recent windows opened up, your other, open windows over here on the left-hand side, while you have one application here in the center where you can, enter full screen. You have these other options here as well. It works the same as it does on Mac OS. And it's nice too, because you could also resize your windows. If I wanted to resize this window and kind of move it over and then pull in YouTube, for example, right here, I can do that. And if I wanted to pull in my notes and put that right here, I can do that as well. And once you have these different applications going on at once, you could also just swipe over from here to see your other windows. So that's one way to do it. You could also activate this from the control center. This icon right here is to turn on and turn off Stage Manager. So I just turn it off. I can turn it on by doing that. Now, if you don't have that in the control center, just tap and hold, go to add a control, and then just search for Stage Manager, and you'll see it right there. And if you are somebody who's going to use the Stage Manager feature a lot for multitasking, I would highly recommend going into display and brightness, and then down to display zoom, and set that to more space, because you're going to have more space for windows in that view. Okay, so let me tell you about one of my favorite use cases for the iPad on my desk when I'm working from home, and that is using my iPad as a secondary display. So if you go onto your Mac and you move your mouse over the green, full screen button right here, you will see an option. If you click and hold right there, you'll see an option to move to your iPad. Now, when you do that, you will see this. So you can see that we have this window from our Mac now showing up on our iPad, and we're able to use our mouse and keyboard that was connected to our Mac right here on the iPhone. We can interact just like it was a Mac application, or a iPad application rather. And you can see our menu bar, everything up top just like on the Mac. We also have our quick controls right here. So we have these different controls, like including command, just different keys that you could use here as well. So you can use your iPad as an extended display of your Mac. That's pretty useful. I do use that sometimes, but the thing I use on a daily basis is continuity with my Mac. So if I have my mouse right here, my mouse and keyboard, if it's connected to the same account, I could just go over on my Mac like without connecting anything, and it will automatically go to my iPad. As you can see, the cursor right there on my iPad, I can use that mouse to select things and maneuver throughout iPadOS using my mouse here from my Mac. And this is something that I use on a daily basis, especially because you can drag and drop different files as well. So if I go into my notes here, for example, with this, and we're just going to select, some of this text right here, for example, if I take and tap and hold on that and I move this over, I can actually take it over to my Mac and paste that right there just by moving my mouse over to the sides so that it goes onto my Mac's home screen. So that is pretty awesome, and that's something I use literally every single day with my iPad. It's really an extension of my workflow on my Mac because of continuity. And you might also want to go into your settings, go to General, and then right here to AirPlay and Continuity, because here is where you'll see the options and the toggles for cursor and keyboard, and also for continuity camera. But the main thing we're talking about here is cursor and keyboard. That's where you can use your cursor and keyboard from your Mac on your iPad. Now, here's another tip for your iPad. You need to take advantage of that USB-C port. So the USB-C port is very powerful, and you can plug a lot of things into that. So not only can you connect a mouse, a keyboard, USB-C hubs, SSDs is my favorite thing to hook up to the Mac. So we have an SSD right here. And if you go into the Files application, you will see under Locations that your SSD shows up right there. And if you tap on that, it will show you the content inside of that drive. You could also easily take and drag files or photos into your hard drive or SSD right there. And something that's really cool is you could actually format SSDs from the Files application. So this is something new with iPadOS 18. So if you're in the Files application here and you want to format a drive, you can just tap and hold on it right here over in the Locations, and you can see that we have the option to erase that SSD. You could do that straight from the Files app on your iPad, which is pretty awesome. You could also go to Info and see the information about that specific drive. And if you maybe don't have a big iCloud plan and you want to kind of offload some of your photos and videos, you can do that straight to an SSD right here. You can do this from an iPhone as well. I just find it to be more handy on the iPad. So if you go to select some photos right here, and then you go to Save to Files, this is where you can select your SSD drive right here, and then you go save, and it will save those straight to that drive. Okay, so it's about time that we talk about the Apple Pencil and how to use it to its full potential on the iPad. So you will need to check the compatibility with which pencil is compatible with your device. I am going to be using the Apple Pencil Pro here on the iPad Air, but I do also have the Apple Pencil USB-C for the iPad A16. So there are some features missing in that pencil, but the overall premise is going to be the same for all. So we're going to go into the Notes app, for example. Actually, you know what? Let me show you something that I use daily without actually even being in my iPad. So we're going to lock the screen here. And once we are on the lock screen and we have our Apple Pencil, if we just simply tap in the middle, it will open up a quick note right there. That is something I use all the time with my iPad to quickly jot down some notes or some thoughts that I might have had. And you'll notice how it automatically fixes my handwriting right there. It's a really cool animation that goes along with that as well. However, if I select this right here, if I select my typing, you can see that we do have some other options as well, such as copy as text insert space above. We could also straighten. So straighten's one of my favorite things. So if it's, crooked, you could go ahead to straighten and it will straighten out that handwritten text for you. That's something I use all the time. And you can also move the text if you want. So if you tap and hold right here with the Apple Pencil on some text that you just wrote, you can see that you get this little, really thick line right here, and you can kind of move everything around. So you can kind of move it to different lines or kind of space it out more, whatever you would like. You can kind of do that right there with that gesture. And you'll also see this little dot down here. I'm not actually touching the screen, but you can see this little dot. That is called Hover, Apple Pencil Hover. And that used to be an iPad Pro exclusive, but now you can do that on other iPads as well, including the iPad Air. It's nice to be able to see where you're going to, kind of start drawing before you actually touch down on the screen. And if you have an Apple Pencil Pro, you can squeeze in right here, and that will pull up a menu. This is called Squeeze, and you can quickly access some of your different pencils and tools right here. You can also select the eraser. You have your signatures, all that right there just from a simple press, and you can also dismiss it by clicking in as well on the Apple Pencil itself. And there's also a cool feature with the Apple Pencil Pro called Barrel, and it kind of shows you the direction that your tool is going to go in before you actually press down on the screen. But let's talk more about some things that are available to everybody with the Apple Pencil. So I want to talk about shapes, because a lot of people draw shapes and they look really bad because they don't hold down once they finish. So if I draw a square, for example, we're going to go back to our tool right here. We'll just draw a square. If we keep holding down, it will make that a perfect square. Same with a triangle. If we hold down, once we finish, we don't let up off the screen, it will turn that into a perfect shape. You could do that for pretty much any shape on your iPad with the Apple Pencil. So we'll just keep holding right there. I guess I held up, so we need to do it all in one go. So there we go, keep holding. I guess that was supposed to be a heart, but that was a bad version of a heart. So there we go, we'll try this again. There we go, that's a better heart. And if you want to select multiple items at once to kind of maybe move them, you can select this tool right here. This is the selector tool, and you can kind of just do like this to select multiple items, and this will allow you to move those items all at once. Now there's also a really cool feature called Scribble that you can use throughout iPad OS. So if you're always using your pencil and you don't want to have to touch the screen to type in something, you don't have to thanks to Scribble. So if I go into Safari and I just go up to the address bar and simply start drawing with my Apple Pencil, you will see that it will actually convert that to text right there, and it will do what I'm trying to do for me without actually having to type it myself. So that is very handy. I use that all the time in Safari specifically to go to a website. I just find it to be quicker for me. And like I said, you can really do this anywhere. So if I even go right here and I start typing in display in the search field in my settings, it will, convert that to text as if I typed it and show me all the results for display. So you might find a use case for that in an application of your choice. This does also work in third-party apps as well. So if I go into Notion, for example, so if I'm in a fresh document right here, I can just simply start drawing and it will insert that text into there. And also a cool thing with Scribble is if you want to remove something, you could just have to kind of scribble through it just like that, and it will remove that text for you. Now we should also talk about scanning documents and annotating them or signing them with your iPad, because this is something that I still use pretty much on a weekly basis. Maybe like every couple weeks I use this, but I like using it on my iPad way better than my iPhone. It's just better and it's easier to use with a bigger screen. So we're going to use this iPad Smartfolio package as our document, but first we need to actually get to the point where we can scan that document with our iPad. So what you want to do is go into Notes right here and just press and hold on the icon on your home screen or in your dock right here, and you'll see an option for Scan Document, and that opens up the viewfinder here for the camera right away. So now we're just going to go ahead and scan this. Okay, so we scanned it, and you can see it's a pretty perfect scan. I mean, it turned out perfectly right there. So now that we're done with that, we'll just go ahead and tap on Done, and we'll go ahead to Save down here in the bottom right, and that will open it up right away in our notes. And you can just start annotating this right here from this view. You don't actually have to do anything, and you can even add signatures right here as well. So we tap that right there, and we go to the plus and go to Add Signature. You can see we can add our signature right there if there was a field for a signature. So it shows up right here, and you can also change that if you want. So if it's too light, we just tap on this dot right here and up up it a little bit to maybe like 12 points. That way it stands out more and it's more legible. And also once you save that file as a PDF like we have right here, you could also go to this option right here and autofill sections. So if there are sections for like a tax form or something like that, you will see this little blue, kind of highlight right here, which will indicate you could actually type in to that section. And Apple's gotten a lot better with this over time. You could also add a plus if you want to add a text form box or a signature, and you can do that right there as well. And while we're dealing with documents and files, we might as well talk about the Files application as a whole, because there are a few things in here I do want to talk about. So first off, you need to set up your favorites. So if you have a specific folder that you use all the time and you find yourself accessing all the time, you should probably add that as a favorite. So for example, my Lightroom presets, if I am always in that folder, what I can do is I can just take and drag this folder over here to my favorites, and now it will always be over there for quick and easy access. Also, if there's a specific file that I want to always have access to regardless of if I have internet connection or not, you can actually do that as well. So we tap and hold on a specific file, we have an option here to keep downloaded. That way it stays downloaded on our iPad regardless of whether or not we have an internet connection. We can always access that file. And by the way, when you're in the Files app, you could always tap the three dots right here as well to scan documents if you don't want to do it the other way that I showed before. Also, if you go to edit sidebar right here, this is also where you can add in, if you have like a Google Drive or Dropbox account, you can sync it up right here as well. You can also kind of maneuver everything around and change the order if you would like to. And while we're talking about customizing applications, the next thing you need to do on your iPad is customize the Photos application. So a lot of people really do not like the Photos application, and a lot of people I've found, at least from the people I've talked to and I've seen, a lot of them have customized it on their iPhone but not on their iPad. So don't skip out on this. You want to make it as useful as you can. So what you want to do is in Photos, just go all the way down to the bottom and then go to Customize and Reorder, and you want to deselect anything that you do not want to see. Okay, so we've customized it to our liking. I'm actually going to move this over here as well. So we're going to have kind of two sides to everything. So we're going to have two kind of columns, I guess, right here in the Photos app for everything. So let's add in trips right there as well to make it even. And there we go. Now in our Photos application, it's a lot cleaner and it's full of stuff that we actually use and actually like. And by the way, there's a new filter in iPadOS 18.4. So if you go down here and then go to filter, we have not in an album. So if you want to filter photos and only see ones that are not in an album, you can do that right there. Now, the next thing you need to do on your iPad is to get familiar with the new Mail application. So we now have the new Mail app on the iPad that we had on the iPhone before. So you do have your different mail categories right here. So if you go ahead, you might see this at first. If you go to try categories, this will show you the different categories you have right here. So we have primary, you also have transactions, and then you have updates, and you have promotions. Now, while you're on any of these, if you just simply tap again, that will take you to all mail. So you can see all your mail without any categories. And if you get an email from somebody who you know is important and you don't want to rely on Apple Intelligence to determine if that email is important from that person, you can go to the three dots right here and go to categorize sender. And instead of having it automatically categorize it, you could choose to always have it as primary, for example. That way it always shows up in your primary inbox. And you should also customize the toolbar up here. A lot of people don't do this. So if you go to the three dots and go to customize toolbar, there's a new option here for categorize sender. So you might want to drag that up there so you can easily categorize a sender manually if you would like to. And also if you want to be reminded of an email later, you can drag that up there as well. So you can just easily access that straight from the toolbar right here. And of course, if you don't like the new Mail application at all, you can reset this and just completely get rid of the categories by going to the three dots right here and then just changing this to list view. And then you have the old classic style for the Mail applications. Oh, and one last thing I want to mention is if you go into the Mail settings right here and then scroll down, we have this new option in iPadOS 18.4 for deleting or moving message action. You can now choose what you want to happen after that. Either don't select the message or view next message. So the next thing you need to do on your iPad is configure Touch ID for more than one or maybe even more than two fingers if you did not already set this up in the initial setup process. So I'll be quick on this, but go into your settings, go to Touch ID and passcode, and from here under fingerprints, you might want to add at least one additional fingerprint just because you're probably going to be holding your iPad in many different ways over time. So sometimes it'll be your left index finger, sometimes it'll be your right index finger, sometimes it'll be straight up and you might use your middle finger. You might just want to go in here and add some additional fingerprints just to make it easier on yourself to unlock your device faster. And also just take a second look at what you want to use Touch ID for. So I like having all these selected, but if you don't like that for some reason, you can deselect that. But most importantly down here under allow access when locked, you might want to disable certain toggles right here to not allow access to certain things when your iPad is locked. Like for example, maybe home control, or maybe, the control center, for example. So if somebody steals your iPad, they're not going to be able to go into airplane mode if you have control center turned off. So when you lock your device and then you try to go into control center, you can see nothing happens unless I were to put in my Touch ID. Okay, so we just talked about the control center, so we may as well continue on that. So swipe down from the control center. The next thing you want to do is customize your control center. So I'm not just talking about just this page right here with these different options. There are other things I want to talk about. So once you have the control center pulled down, just tap and hold anywhere and then go to add a control. And this is where you have your different controls that you can add to the control center on your iPad. Now, one of the ones I love having on my iPad, since I do a lot of work on it, is ambient music, specifically the chill or the productivity sections, or the toggles for that. So now if you press that, it will start playing music for being productive, and you can see it'll actually start playing it right there. So I find that to be very handy to have in the control center. Of course, there are other things like screen mirroring. Of course, you do want to have things like screen recording, your rotation lock, all of that you can add right in here. Your low power modes, just add anything that you would like to have in the control center in there. And you might want to have something like the text size as well, which can be useful on the iPad. But most importantly, there's a lot of pages in here. A lot of people don't realize you can get rid of these. So if you don't use the music page right here in your control center, you can just simply tap on the minus right there and it's gone. Now you don't have to worry about that page taking up space on your control center. So same with the connectivity platter here. A lot of people don't realize you can remove that as well. Remove it and done. And now you can just add other pages of customized toggles that you've set yourself. Now, I might as well talk about the home screen as well, because you also want to customize your home screen and your lock screen even. So the first thing is tapping and holding on the home screen anywhere where it's blank. And from here, you will see that you do get your icons in jiggle mode. Of course, you can change your widget size right here. So you can do that very easily. I like doing that a lot on the iPad since we have so much real estate to work with. But anyways, if you go into edit right here and then go to customize, this is where you can change the look of your app icons on your home screen. So if you want them to be dark, that's what I have right now. But if you want them to be light, you can change that to be light as well. You also have automatic based on the sunrise and sunset, or tinted. If you want to have a really unique looking home screen, you can change the color of the icons this way. And it's really cool. If you have a certain color you want to match, you can just tap on that right there to match your background. Maybe we'll do something a little bit like this, for example, and you can kind of see how that looks now on your home screen. So some of them don't look very good, but you can make some of them look pretty good if you do the right colors and the right background as well. But that's there. You could also change the background if you want it to be its normal brightness. You could do that, or you can darken it by tapping on that little sun in the top left. And you'll also want to customize your wallpaper. So you can see this is the wallpaper from my Volant wallpaper collection. It's made for the iPhone, but it does also work on the iPad. But if we swipe down over here on the left to go into our notification center, and we tap and hold right here, and then go to customize, and then go to home screen, this is how you can change your photo for your home screen. So you can see I can move this around, or if I want to select a new photo, just go down here and I can select one of my wallpapers from this section. You also have your filters just like you do on the iPhone, but we're just going to go with that. And of course, you can go ahead and tap on done. And from here, we can blur that if we want to. You also have gradient, color, or pair. So if you want to just pair the same wallpaper as your lock screen onto your home screen, you can do that. You can choose a flat color or a gradient. I think you should do a custom wallpaper just like that one. Now, also, when you're on this page right here and you go to customize and then go into the lock screen, you also have a section over here for widgets that you might want to add to that for quick and easy access to certain things like your calendar, your clock, and so on. If you have something in ChatGPT or Notion, you could add that over there as well. So we have our documents right there, and now you have easy access to those. You could also change the weight and the color of the font for the clock right here. So we have these different font colors for this specific one. You don't have a lot of options for this specific kind of wallpaper I chose right here, but if you have a custom one, you can do a little bit more with that. But this is one from Apple. It's a collection, the Hello collection right here. You could also up here for the date, you can add a widget up there. So if you want to just add the temperature, we can do that. And now it will show the temperature up there next to the date. So one thing that I think a lot of people sleep on with the iPad is with widgets, specifically third-party widgets. I use third-party widgets all the time on my iPad because you have a lot of real estate. You may as well take advantage of it with widgets that are going to make your life easier and allow you to basically just work faster. Like for example, I have my different files right here from the Files application. I have my to-dos, and I don't have any third-party ones right here, but we're just going to add some right here. Okay, so here are a few widgets, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. So you can see ChatGPT, you can quickly access different things in ChatGPT without actually having to go into the app. Same with YouTube, searching it, going to a certain feed. My Notion, I have my Notion projects right here. Procreate, if you're somebody who does a lot of drawing, just being able to easily access this from your widgets is amazing on the iPad because again, you just have so much real estate to work with. I just find it to be very handy, and especially if you use it as a productivity device, it's a big must-have in my opinion to add these third-party widgets, and of course first-party ones as well. I just find the third-party ones to be the ones that a lot of people don't realize they actually have. So just go into there and add some of these widgets to your home screen. Now something else I want to talk about is if you tap and hold and go to edit and then go to edit pages, you can also hide pages on your iPad. So if you don't want to see that page, for example, you can just simply hide it, and then when you tap on done, now you just have one screen of applications and that's it. That whole page is hidden. You can go back to edit pages right here and re-enable that. I find that to be good when you're in a specific focus mode. So I have this set up on my iPhone so that when I'm in a focus mode, I only have one specific home screen that shows up that's hidden when I'm in a normal view. And the way to do that on your iPad is just to go into settings and then go down to focus and then go into one of your focus modes, like recording a video, for example, and then you can choose which page actually shows up for that. So if I want this to be the only page that shows up while in this, now when I go back, you can see this is the only page I have because I am in that specific focus mode right now. So that's another little hack you can do for your home screens. Now, something else you should do on your iPad is get familiar with Apple Intelligence. So this does not apply to the iPad A16, unfortunately, but if you do have another iPad, you will have access to Apple Intelligence. And from here, you will have these settings. You will need to download a model beforehand for it to work. But if you go down here, we do also have the ChatGPT extension, which ironically is my favorite part of Apple Intelligence as of now. So from here, you might want to go ahead and turn off confirm ChatGPT requests. That's on by default. So an example of this, I'll show you. If you double tap down here, by the way, you will be able to type to Siri. So if you just double tap right there, you get this interface and you can type to Siri. So if I ask for something very specific that Siri cannot answer, ChatGPT will answer for me. So let me give you an example. So I just typed in best 30-minute workout routine for muscle building, be specific with diet and all. And obviously Siri will not be able to answer that. So it's going to access ChatGPT, as you can see right there. And then it will give me a great response from ChatGPT. And then of course we do have things like writing tools. So if you're in the notes or messages or mail, anywhere like that, you will be able to just simply go to writing tools right here when you have text selected, or you'll see this little menu item right here if you're in a certain application like notes, and that will pull up the writing tools. You could proofread, rewrite, summary, key points. You could also compose with ChatGPT. You can get ChatGPT to actually write out something for you based on a prompt. So that's really nice to have, but there's nothing really iPad specific that's not already in the iPhone. So I don't want to spend too long here since you're most likely already familiar with it, but just get familiar with Apple Intelligence because there's a lot of hate for it, but it's actually pretty useful in a lot of scenarios. And then the final thing you need to know about is just a little simple tip for the iPad, and that is how to force restart it if it freezes up and nothing else works. So if you want to turn off your iPad, like I showed you earlier, just swipe down from your control center and press and hold on the power button up in the top right-hand corner, and that will prompt you to slide to power off. However, you can also use the Touch ID button along with the volume button together, and that will bring up the slide to power down menus. If I hold those together, you can see it will pull it up. And then if you need to force restart your iPad, if nothing is working and it's not responding, all you have to do is press up on the volume button and then down on the volume button, and then press and hold on the Touch ID or the top button right there, and continue holding that until you see the Apple logo. So don't swipe to power off. Or if it doesn't show up, just keep holding it and then it will go black, and keep holding it until you see the Apple logo and then let go, and that should force restart your iPad. So there you have it. Those are some of my best tips for getting started with the iPad in 2025. Now, if you want to go more in depth, if you want to see more sophisticated tips and tricks on the iPad, I did make a video on that as well, which I will leave up in the cards and also down in the description below. But if you enjoyed this video, let me know with a comment down below. Also give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.